Honorable members, can we remember Ndabezitha Kwankwa mask akhe usincede ne distance right. Thank you. Let's adhere to those protocols. Honorable members, the only item on the order paper is questions addressed to the President. There are 4 supplementary questions on each question. Parties have given an indication of which questions their members wish to pose. A supplementary question. Adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the officer presiding. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness, among others, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform and is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip or on duty will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of their member. When all the supplementary questions have been answered by the President, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. Honorable members, let me welcome the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the Republic of South Africa. Honorable President, you are welcome. Thank you, honorable members. I'll be happy if I can see the face of the President on the screen before I start. Thank you. I can see the President is there, although on my screen only. Honorable members, can you please mute your mics? Those on virtual platform, please do that. We don't want disturbance. The House starts at 2 o'clock, and at that time you must be ready to have muted your microphones and your videos. Thank you very much. I hope we won't have more disturbances. The President, the first question is question number 13, asked by the Leader of the Opposition. Question number 13. The Honorable the President.
Honorable House Chair, honorable members, the fight against corruption and state capture has required
President. Honorable President, I'm very sorry. Before you continue, can we get the sound correct? ICT, can we get the sound correct? We can't hear the President. There's a lot of sound behind his voice. Can we try again?
Can you hear me better now?
No, President.
Honorable House,
No,
can you
President.
hear me?
We can hear you, but there is a disturbing sound that is so high. I'm not sure if it's from your side, if there are some of the, maybe somebody is switching on also, but the NA secretary is busy with it now. He's calling to make sure that we understand each other. Pardon us just for a few seconds. Yeah, no, it's not working. Let's try. I'm sorry for this. Honorable President, let's try.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Am I audible now?
You are, but the sound is still so strong. I'm not sure what the problem is. Can somebody advise what could it be so that we tell the people? Oh, ICT is checking. ICT is busy on it, Mr. President, just for a while. Will I be informed? Okay. Yesterday, we complained about the interruption by the interpreter, and we asked them to be on time and make sure everything is in order. I'm not sure what is happening, that we still have problems when we have to proceed with the work. Yes? Are you fine now?
Fine. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, yes, now, President. President, we can hear you now, and I'm informed that,
Okay.
Continue, President. The question, to remind you, President, is the question number 13, posed to you by the leader of the opposition, the Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable members, the fight against corruption and state capture has required quite extensive measures to stabilize and revitalize our law enforcement agencies. We've had to do that with capable and ethical leadership that is able to restore the credibility of these vital institutions. Much work has been done to ensure that these agencies have the necessary skills, the personnel, and the resources that they need to undertake the demanding tasks of detecting, investigating, and successfully prosecuting instances of corruption. But in the main, it has also been the process of rebuilding these institutions. A crucial part of this work has been to improve a number of aspects of how they do their work. For instance, it's been to improve information sharing amongst them, coordination and cooperation, and also doing so with other related institutions and not only law enforcement agencies. This is evident in the revitalization of the multi-agency anti-corruption task team, which currently has 223 prioritized cases at different stages of investigation and prosecution. In May of this year, we established what we call the Fusion Center based on at the Financial Intelligence Center, which serves as an operational hub with dedicated resources to fight COVID-related corruption. Now, since the beginning of this sixth administration, the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, also known as the Hawks, has established task teams to fast-track corruption investigations in municipalities, government, and the private sector. Together with the NPA, the Hawks have prioritized 10 priority corruption-related cases to fast-track for investigation and prosecution. Honorable members would recall that in April 2019, I established the Investigating Directorate within the NPA to focus on serious corruption and state capture, to enable the Directorate to address complex and organized corruption. Personnel have been seconded from the South African Police Service, the Hawks, and the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID. As further evidence of improved cooperation, and Investigating Directorate has also secured forensic accountants and legal resources from SARS, the SIU, the FIC Reserve Bank, and the State Security Agency. Recent amendments to the regulations of the State Capture Commission now allows the Commission to share information records, and also the records, documents, directly with the Investigating Directorate and any other law enforcement agency in South Africa. And with the establishment of the SIU Special Tribunal in February 2019, the Special Investigating Unit is now able to fast-track civil claims and recover funds lost to corruption. The SIU has also been an integral part of the establishment of the Health Sector Anti-Corruption Forum, which was established in October 2019, as well as the Local Government Anti-Corruption Forum, which was launched in October 2020. These initiatives bring together several law enforcement agencies and stakeholders to tackle corruption in an integrated and an earnest manner. SARS is also playing a vital role in all this. It has established the Illicit Criminal Economic Activities Division, which also focuses on investigations into state capture, tender abuse-related cases that have to do with the PPE, fraud. Beyond the work of the law enforcement agencies, the fight against state capture and corruption has also been taken up in some state-owned enterprises. In PRASA, for example, 28 matters have been referred to the SIU for investigation, and the Hawks are investigating a number of case dockets emanating from the Public Protector's report on the agency. Transnet is another case in point. It has established a case management platform involving the various law enforcement agencies and relevant regulators to collaborate in their efforts to ensure recovery of losses, also to deal with disciplinary action, which could also lead to criminal prosecution. Now, as a result, several matters have been referred to the NPA for possible prosecution and to the SIU for investigation. Transnet has also instituted numerous civil recoveries in the High Court against various individuals and entities. Following internal investigations at another institution, which is ESCOM, the ESCOM has recommended 80 instances of criminal prosecution against employees. Much of the past 2 years has been focused on building up the capabilities of the institutions that we rely on to combat corruption and state capture. So, honorable members will have seen in recent months there has been clear evidence of progress in bringing cases to court. Work is underway. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President. The Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Steenhuisen. Honorable members, you are not allowed to do that. Don't switch on that mic. I told you that you lose your privilege to do that if you are not in the House. Thank you. Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for those answers and for those initiatives. But if all of that is really true, and you really are committed to rooting out corruption in government, in your party and in society, how is it that Ace Magashule is still your Secretary General and that Mr. Bongani Bongo is still able to put a question on this order paper today?
Thank you. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Member, the issue of the leaders of the ANC is a matter that is being handled by the African National Congress. The ANC, through its own processes, is dealing with these matters. And like I have said before, with all these matters that I've been reporting on, let us wait for all these processes to unfold, and in time, these matters will be addressed and everybody will get to know how the African National Congress itself is addressing those matters. Standing here today, I stand before you as the President of the Republic. Those matters that Mr. Steenhuisen is raising are germane to the African National Congress, which, as I have said, is dealing with the matters. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable President. The second follow-up question will come from the Honorable Tseke. Matseke.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable President Kialeboga. Honorable President, it is clear to all who have the integrity to listen of the decisiveness that has been displayed by state institutions in the fight against corruption, mismanagement of state resources, and financial fraud. The strategic objective must be to criminally charge those who have evidence against them and successfully get a conviction. Do you, Honorable President, not believe that this is a struggle that we must all participate in, and that it is not a narrow party political affair, but rather one that seeks justice to be served, whilst at the same time builds a new nation on a fundamentally different moral foundation based on human solidarity, integrity, transparency, and accountability, a new society with the highest levels of ethos and values? Ke a leboga, President.
Ra leboga mme, Mo President.
Ke a leboga le nna. Honorable House Chair, I couldn't agree more with the honorable member that what we seek to do is to ensure that our institutions that have been charged with the responsibility to fight corruption and criminality in our country do so without any fear favor, or prejudice against anyone. And that our task as South Africans is to be supportive to those institutions, to so support them that they should know that they should have the courage to be able to execute their work on the basis of no favor, no prejudice. And as they do so, they should also know that we will not interfere in their work. We will not seek to block them, because after all, they should be acting in the interests of all South Africans. And as they do so, they are seeking to ensure that South Africa is a country where we adhere to the highest of values, values of honesty, integrity, truthfulness, and that we will continuously abhor corruption, because corruption in the end is a crime against the people of our country. Because through corruption, we actually are denying our people the resources that are meant to advance their interests and to provide service delivery to them. So I couldn't agree more with the member, and thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, President. Potso e latelang e tla botsa ke Moruti Mishwe, motlhomphehi.
Ke a leboga mme. The ACDP commends the Hawks, the SIU, and other law enforcement agencies for their recent successes in making arrests in corruption cases involving high-profile individuals. We are on record for appealing to Treasury to allocate more resources to crime-fighting and law enforcement agencies to enable them to achieve greater successes in their work. Advocate Shamila Batohi is on record for raising a lack of resources as one of their serious challenges that hamper in quicker turnaround time when dealing with serious corruption cases. Will the President support the ACDP position that monies used to bail out failing SOEs would be better spent on bolstering and strengthening our investigative teams in their fight against corruption? And if yes, when are we going to start seeing more money allocated to law enforcement agencies so that they can carry on with their work without fear or favor? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair and Honorable Member. I'd like to say that sitting where I sit as President and as a Cabinet of the Republic of South Africa, we are charged with the responsibility to always seek to create a good balance between what we spend the country's resources, may I add, the people's resources, and what ends we want to achieve. The issue of the need by our criminal justice institutions for resources is a recurring and ongoing challenge that they face. With the fiscal challenges that we have, we're finding that we've got to balance. We've got to balance the expenditure processes right across various departments and the needs that all these departments have. And we seek in doing so to ensure that the work that has to be done by any of our departments, including the criminal justice institutions, should continue, should never stop. And where the need increases, we always try to find a way of closing the gap. And as it comes to our state-owned enterprises, a number of those state-owned enterprises were set up to advance the developmental goals of our nation. And from time to time, they do run into financial difficulties. And we have said that we are not going to continue just bailing out those state enterprises. And it's a clear message that we are sending to them, that we want them to start standing on their own. But where there is a need to support them, to achieve the goals that we have as a government, we do so. And at the same time, we do support our criminal justice institutions. So that is the balance, honorable member, that I am talking about. It is a difficult balance to strike from time to time, but we have to continue striking that balance, particularly now when our fiscal situation is as challenged as it is. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, President. Honorable Groenewald, you're the last to ask a follow-up question on this one.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable President, at the Zondo Commission, Mr. Popo Molefe said that in 2015, he submitted a comprehensive report on corruption to the top 6 of the ANC, where you were a member of that top 6, and he said nothing has been done. Lucky Montana also said that the then Secretary General or Treasury for the ANC, the Honorable Mkhize, gave the account numbers of the ANC for donations. Now, Honorable President, firstly, why didn't you act in 2015? Secondly, on your desk at the moment is the Act for Party Political Funding. The regulations must be signed off by you. And part of that regulations is to ensure that there's no corruption, because everything must be declared above 100,000 donation to political parties. My question, Honorable President, when are you going to sign the regulations so that the public of South Africa can be more assured that funds to political parties will be transparent, and that is another tool to curb corruption in South Africa?
Member. Honorable members, before the President responds, please check Rule 142, number 5. The person who poses the question gets 2 minutes, and all supplementary questions are given 1 minute. I've been lenient, and I'm not going to be lenient again on the questions that follow. So make sure you time yourself. If you continue with the preambles, you might not be able to ask your question. Thank you. The Honorable, the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I'm glad to realize that Honorable Member has a good memory in remembering that I actually did sign the bill once it had been passed. After signing that bill, the regulations, as he correctly says, have to be put in place. Now, I've been informed that there are quite a few amendments that are being discussed, thought of, before the regulations are fully signed. Now, this has come from a number of quarters, and I've been advised that hold back, because there are quite a few amendments that are being thought of and worked on, including from Home Affairs itself. So much as I've signed, I stand ready to sign once again, once all those processes have been completed. It is not an attempt to seek to stop this process. It is an attempt to try and do it as correctly as possible. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. We proceed to the second question, which is question number 14, asked by the Honorable Malema of the EFF. The Honorable, the President.
Honorable House Chair, and honorable members, as the Honorable Malema should know, it is the EFF and not the public protector, as he alludes in his question, that has brought the application to unseal documents related to the public protector's report of July 2019. The body from whom the public protector obtained the bank statements in question, the Financial Intelligence Center, has consistently opposed the publication of these documents. The FIC has confirmed in its affidavits before
we lost you, Mr. President. We lost you. Babu Galo, vala.
We can't lose him at a critical hour.
Awa papa, go di usualo ye manyana. Aserena, give me chin. Is the president able to continue? We can see you, President, but we can't hear you. Now you are gone. What's happening here? Those with the president, please assist to bring the president back. The president's video is there.
can you hear me
Yes,
once again?
you are back now.
I'm sorry. I think we lost signal on our side. I apologize for that.
Okay, continue, Mr. President.
I was saying, Honorable House Chair, that the body from whom the public protector obtained the bank statements in question, the FIC, has consistently opposed the publication of these documents. The FIC has confirmed in its affidavits before court that the information it shared with the public protector could only be made public with their express permission, which was not sought by the public protector. Only the FIC can allow these documents to be made public. The bank statements in question are from accounts over which I do not have any form of control. They belong to entities and private companies which I do not control and whose internal financial affairs are protected by the country's privacy laws. It is therefore not within my power to make any of them public. And then again, I need to say absolutely no evidence of corruption or any other form of improper conduct exists in relation to these documents or to CR17 campaign. To repeat what I said on this matter in this House on the 22nd August in 2019, there are no rules or regulations in place for the disclosure of donations for internal party leadership contests. Nor is there a provision for the disclosure of such information in the Executive Ethics Code or in the Code of Ethical Conduct and Disclosure of Members' Interests for the National Assembly and permanent council members. I'm sure that the Honorable Malema would agree that it would be unreasonable to expect the disclosure of such information until such time that all candidates to such contests and all parties are held to the same requirements of disclosure and transparency. The Political Party Funding Act, which I signed into law last year and which the EFF has consistently opposed, does regulate public and private funding of political parties and requires the disclosure of donations that are accepted. While this act does not extend to the funding of internal party leadership contests, I have said before, and I will say it again, that this is perhaps a good time for this House to consider whether it is necessary and desirable for funding of internal party contests to be regulated. This House must discuss that, and if it so desires, come up with a law to regulate internal party contests, because we do not have such regulations now. Honorable House Chair, ultimately the courts will make the determination whether the information of the bank accounts of private persons should be made public or not. And the EFF is involved in a court case in that regard. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President. Mohlomphehi Malema.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Bavenda, I think we need to correct one thing first here. The EFF has never recently opposed the political funding bill. We've always supported it, we've always supported transparency, and we are known for that. Now, what I don't understand, Bavenda, is why are we on the opposite side on this matter? Because if you were honest to what you said you were going to do when you became a president, ourselves and yourself should be on the same side demanding that there should be a disclosure of the CR17 documents for simple reason. When you say Aspen has got a COVID-19 vaccine deal, is it not because they are part of the people who financed the CR17 program? When you launch Steve Brooks' estate, upmarket estate in Pretoria, and you personally go there even when it's not BEE compliant, is it not because Steve Brooks is part of the people who financed the CR17? We are always left in doubt as to why would a president go and launch a project of Baldwin properties, even when they are not BEE compliant, unless there is something special they are doing to the president, which is not known to us. But if you are honest and you are respecting what you said you were going to do, which is fighting corruption and being transparent, you will say, I'm joining the fight, even if I don't have control over those accounts. Let me join the fight that says, let there be a disclosure of these funders, because you've got nothing to hide, Mr. President. And the people who financed you, who did this in your name, surely they too should not have anything to hide. Because they were financing an anti-corruption and a transparent campaign. Why are they hiding if they are indeed loyal to what you stand for?
Thank you, Honorable Malema. Let's check our time. The President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair and Honorable Malema. I want to apologize if I incorrectly said that you have opposed the political party funding bill. Somehow that is the impression that was created out there. But then I'm delighted to know that the EFF does not stand in opposition of that bill. Honorable Malema, I'd like to say that yes, we are on the same side when it comes to transparency, when it comes to fighting corruption. You will find a great supporter in me in that regard. This matter is now before our courts. And that is why I have said Now that it is before our courts, let us allow that process to reach its fruition. And once the court has ruled in this regard, let that be the case. Because as I say, I have no control over those accounts whatsoever. And I'd like the court to rule on this matter. You have taken the matter to court and I think on appeal, and let us together wait for that process to ensue and to reach its final conclusion.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Honorable President.
Honorable House Chair.
Thank you. There is a point of order. Yes, Honorable
Yes,
Mulder.
Honourable Chairperson, I'm rising on a point of order. Is it in order for the President to be under the wrong impression that the EFF in fact voted in favour of that bill because they voted against that bill?
Honorable, I think that is something that we cannot discuss now.
Sit down, the bold head.
Honorable members, Honorable Malema, please, you don't do that. I don't want to remove you. I'm warning you.
On a point of order, Chair.
Honorable Thring, what's the point of order?
Chair, I think that you have continually asked members not to put their mics or to speak through their mics unless they have explicit permission from yourself to do so, or unless they are actually speaking on an item. And Chair, I think that your warnings, we've all heard them over and over again, but they just get ignored. And Chair, unless you are actually strong on the matter, and if there are some members who do so ignoring your warning, then they need to be removed from the platform as you've warned. Otherwise, Chair, the House is going to deteriorate, and all other members are going to want to do the same.
Thank you very much. You are noted. Let me say that I give a warning to all members, and I give a specific warning to the individual who has made that. So I just gave the Honorable Malema a warning, and if he repeats, it's only then that I will act on it. Thank you. Thank you. The next question will come from the Honorable Holomisa. General. Babunkwankwa ukhona ngendlini uthini? Hawa mara agenziwa lokho, the rules don't allow that, Babunkwankwa.
House Chair. No, is struggling with connection. That's why, Chair. I know that I'm not supposed to answer phones in the House, so I was trying to establish as to what was happening. But if you can't allow the President to ask after this follow-up question, I'm more than prepared and ready to take the question on his behalf.
I can take the next question and then I'll come back to him. You can go outside and try to get him.
Much obliged to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next follow-up question is from the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Mr. President, you've said that you've had no control over the bank statements, but where you do have control and where we've seen the contents of these ANC bank statements, they make for very interesting reading. And here I'm referring specifically to payments made to the ANC into accounts nominated by its Treasurer General, Dr. William Kize, from a company linked to PRASA and a multi-billion rand contract. Can you state unequivocally in the House today and take us into your confidence that the payments made to the ANC by Similex had nothing to do with the awarding of the 3.5 billion Swafambo rail leasing contract? And do you consider it legitimate for a party in government to be taking fundraising monies from the beneficiaries of large state contracts, considering that this looks suspiciously like a kickback?
The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The matter that has been widely reported is a matter that is being dealt with, and the former Treasurer General of the African National Congress Dr. Mkhize has issued a statement in this regard, and it is being dealt with. And the issue of principle of whether it is a good practice or not for, say, beneficiaries of state contracts to be funding political parties is a matter that we need to apply our minds to, having had regard to exactly what happened with regard to these allegations that have been made. We are going to go into the depth or the bottom of this so that we're able to remove all form of doubt so that as people interface with the governing party, they should know exactly what principles need to be observed. So the matter is now out there in the open. It is being dealt with in the African National Congress, and Dr. Mkhize has issued a statement and the matter is being addressed. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you okay, UDM? Or should I?
I think he's okay. Can you try him again, House Chair, please?
Okay. The General, Honorable Holomisa.
All right, may I take the question on his behalf?
You may.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Honorable President, the Zondo Commission has revealed how companies like Bosasa and Edwin Sodi's Black Hat Consulting were used to siphon government funds to the pockets of ruling party leaders and or the ruling party itself. The United Democratic Movement recognizes that we are not alone in the African National Congress presidential race in 2017. Everyone fundraised. However, in the absence of a list, we cannot rule out the possibility that some of the companies that funded the campaigns of African National Congress presidential candidates, yourself included, had been awarded tenders in the same fashion as were Bosasa and others. Would it not be prudent, would you also not support a call for Parliament to establish an ad hoc committee to scrutinize all the campaign finances as part of the fight against corruption to which you have committed yourself? It's a pity that when the president wanted to ask a question again like last time, he all of a sudden had connection problems. It's a matter that needs to be investigated by this House. It can't happen all the time that is able to follow proceedings.
Thank you. Your time has expired, Honorable Kwankwa. Can take your seat. Your question has been asked. Thank you. The President.
Honorable House Chair and Honorable Member, I am really sorry that Honorable Holomisa has not been able to log on and to come online and participate in this. I don't know whether the member is suggesting that some commission of inquiry should be established to find out why Honorable Holomisa is not able to log on, because this is not the first time, it's happening for the second time. If that is what he seeks, maybe he would like to make that very clear. With regard to the issue of Parliament establishing some task force or task team to look at the issue of funding in political party contests, I have said that this matter is not regulated by any rule or regulation. Party political contests have always been seen as internal, but it is a matter which Parliament, in its own time and its own capabilities, should feel entitled to debate, to come up with whatever provision, rule, or regulation, because we are traversing uncharted waters. These are matters that have never really been dealt with, and maybe there is a lot to be learned. I certainly have found that there is a lot to be learned, even with the CR17 issues, and these are matters which I've openly said my own party also needs to discuss, because if we don't discuss and come up with processes, we could just continue making mistakes and errors. I was the very person who raised it internally in the African National Congress. And I will also raise it here in Parliament and say, this matter having come onto the table, it should be discussed and we should find ways of dealing with it and regulating it. We are, after all, the Parliament of the people of South Africa. If there are issues that are of great concern to our nation, we should be able to rise to the occasion ourselves as members of Parliament and debate the issues, and if need be, come up with regulations or laws to regulate this type of behavior going forward. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, House Chair. Mr. President, the country is facing its greatest challenge since the advent of democracy as a result of the high levels of corruption, looting, state capture at different spheres of government, including interference in procurement processes, awarding of tenders, contracts, etc. Mr. President, you are in a position of influence. It is common knowledge that those that fund or sponsor expect something in return. Could you give us an assurance and or give us the names of those that have funded or sponsored you in the CR17 campaign? I'm not interested in the amounts that they may have given, so that we as Parliament and members of Parliament can conduct oversight to ensure that those that sponsored or donated to you will not unduly benefited and may not unduly benefit in the future. And I think that will put this matter to rest. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair and Honorable Member. I would agree that it is unbecoming that any funder who funds should fund on the basis that they should be awarded state tenders. Now, a number of the funders of the CR17 campaign were made public through the press and other forms. Now, as stated, I had no control over the funding of the CR17 campaign. I got to know in some cases, yes, I got to be informed, but in the main, there were people who were running that campaign, as often happens with a number of campaigns. Now, I would say that those who funded have become known, and the scrutiny or the oversight can ensue in regard to those. There are those whose accounts the FIC said should be held back, and I have no control over that, and that is now, as I said earlier, a matter of court processes. So I think we should leave it to that court process, and so that whatever finally comes off it should come off it. But I would say, in the end, I think it is unbecoming that any funder would say that we are funding you, provided you ensure that we get that and that and that tender. On that score, I would agree with you. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, the Honorable the President. We move, Honorable President, to question number 15, asked by the Honorable Siavi from the ANC. The Honorable the President.
Honorable House Chair, honorable members, the central pillar of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, as published, is a massive infrastructure build and maintenance program. Among the areas of significant infrastructure investment are integrated human settlements. This is in line with the medium-term strategic framework, which makes provision for the declaration of priority human settlements and housing development areas. These are areas with specific developmental needs using indicators such as high levels of urbanization, unemployment, and poverty. The development of these areas involves the upgrading of informal settlements, the rapid release of serviced land, affordable rental housing, and integrated residential developments. The accelerated delivery of serviced residential stands is expected to create a substantial number of job opportunities, largely benefiting women and young people. It will also support the construction industry and provide opportunities to local businesses. As part of government's response to COVID-19, the Department of Water and Sanitation allocated more than 300 million rand to the provision of potable water to communities throughout the country. Water tanks had been delivered to a total of 158 local and district municipalities by the end of August 2020. To date, over 1,300 projects have been scoped by the internal engineering team of the department, and about 500 projects are implementation ready. These projects will be labor intensive to ensure that we stimulate the local economies where these projects will be, and also ensure collective ownership of water supply infrastructure. The infrastructure built also includes large water projects in various of our provinces, in the Western Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, Limpopo. The Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan is intended, Honorable House Chair, not only to stimulate economic growth and create jobs. It will also have a direct and tangible impact on the living conditions of many poor and middle-class families who will now have decent housing and reliable access to water and sanitation. I thank you.
Thank you, the Honorable the President. Mohlomphehi, Sia.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo, a ke leboge le mopresidente ka karabo ye a re fileng yona. Gomme ke tšwela pele ke botšiša ke re, Mr. President, what is government doing to improve its capability to deliver infrastructure projects, noting challenges of the inability to spend infrastructure grants by government departments and municipalities in particular, incomplete projects, and instances of poor workmanship as evidenced by the falling RDP houses in KZN recently. Thank you, House Chair.
Re a leboga Mohlomphehi Mookamedi.
Ke a leboga modulasetulo. Honorable members, when it comes to infrastructure, we have decided that we are going to embark on a new trajectory. A trajectory that is going to ensure that we do move onto the implementation plane of infrastructure development. And to this end, we've done two critical things that are enablers. Firstly, we've set up an infrastructure fund in which the fiscus is going to pump money in. Over the next 10 years, it will pump 100 billion rand. And that infrastructure fund is meant to attract private sector funding so that we jointly embark on projects as the public sector and the private sector. I see this as a wise move on the part of government because the infrastructure build of our country cannot be done by government alone. It requires the active and committed participation of the private sector as well. The second enabler that we've embarked on is to set up Infrastructure SA, which is an entity which will in the end become the real agency for infrastructure in our country. That entity is managing the infrastructure layout of our country. It has already been able to get commitments from the private sector and indeed from developmental funding agencies as well as from government itself. We've already mapped out a number of projects, so we've got a very robust and rich pipeline of infrastructure investments. But in setting it up, we've also benefited from the skill base in the private sector. We've benefited from people who have been so well schooled in infrastructure that it has boosted our infrastructure capabilities. And armed with this, two enablers and an oversight entity such as the Presidential Coordinating Committee, which deals, the PICC as well, which deals with infrastructure, which brings together our provinces and our metro mayors. We are then able to have structures, one doing oversight, the others doing, the one doing funding and the other one doing the operational side of things. And this is now the different footing on which our infrastructure interventions are going to be. From one center, we are going to be able to have line of sight of all our infrastructure interventions, but it is also going to operate with the full cooperation of all our provinces. This entity, as we put it together, under the leadership of Dr. Ramaphosa, working together with Minister Delil, they've been able to work with our premiers, with our MECs in the provinces, and so all our infrastructure projects are now streamlined. Some are getting funding. Recently, we held a round table with a number of potential investors, and there were participants from overseas as well. And I got the good impression that our infrastructure play is now getting underway. And indeed, it has started. We've already got commitments of 340 billion, and those project-ready, shovel-ready projects are now underway. This is going to be the real driver of recovery and reconstruction in our country, and therefore the challenges that we have faced in the past, not that they will evaporate immediately, are going to be minimized as much as we possibly can. So I feel really encouraged with the work that we are now going to do in infrastructure. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you.
On a point of order, House Chair.
Honorable Shivambu, what's your point of order?
I know the President came with the answers already of questions that are not even asked, because the question now was, is his response to the state, local government doesn't have capacity to roll out infrastructure. But what he responded has got nothing to do with local government. And that is the question on the table now.
Honorable,
what do you do with local
Honorable Shivambu.
Because there are so many challenges that defends that. He responded to something else that is not related.
Honorable Shivambu, I'm not going to take that order. because we are busy with the question as asked by Honorable Siabi. The leader of the opposition, Honorable Steenhuisen, it's your opportunity now.
Thank you very much. And Mr. President, I'm sure you're going to be shocked by the new unemployment figures that were released today. Expanded unemployment has hit 43%, which is amongst the highest in the world. But the problem with your economic reconstruction and recovery plan is that your finance minister's budget has exposed it as a lie. We all know that if you want the truth in politics, follow the money. And we can see that Minister Mbowene's budget has chosen to rescue South African Airways rather than fund your plan. He's chosen public transport for the rich over water, homes, hospitals and schools for the 30 million poor South Africans. The budget has made a lie of your plan. It is not funded. In fact, in that budget, Minister Mboweni has cut funding for water, homes, hospitals and schools. Our people were the losers, South Africa were the winners. So my question to you is simple. Who do we believe? You, Mr. President, or your finance minister? The budget tabled by the finance minister or your pipe dream plan?
Thank you. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I wanted to start with the question that I said Minister Shivambu. Oh, what a mistake, what a Freudian slip.
No,
that
it's
Honorable,
correct.
Honorable Shivambu.
Honorable
point of order.
Order, Mr. President, can I just say this? Honorable Mautwe, you know you are not supposed to do that. And consider this a warning. Thank you. Continue, Honorable President.
If Honorable Shivambu listened carefully, he would have heard me say that in our infrastructure processes, and including those structures that I was talking about, the enablers as well as the oversight and the implementation, you will have heard that I included the participation, the active participation of a local government. And by the way, it includes SALGA. So local government is also part of this process. And to the extent that they do not have capability, these processes that I was talking about, the enablers, are actually going to add to the capacity that local government should have. So we should never look at the issue of infrastructure development as one-dimensional. It is multidimensional, and it is going to encompass the various actors. And that will also include at the local level, in the rural areas, our traditional leaders, and indeed our local government entities as well. So it is all encompassing. Coming to the question that Honorable Steenhuisen has asked. Honorable Steenhuisen, if you looked carefully at the plan that we announced, this plan is a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next year, the Minister of Finance is going to outline a budget, and a budget that is going to be responding to the various needs and challenges that we face. Right now, we're tackling the COVID-related issues, and to the extent where money has been taken away from certain programs, it is for that limited period. And in some cases, it was going to be money that was not going to be able to be spent because of the challenges that we have had due to COVID. So it's been a question of reprioritizing our budget and reprioritizing it to good ends, because what we are seeking to do is to preserve jobs, but we are also seeking to create jobs. So if you look at it in totality, you don't even need to make a choice who you believe, whether it's the president or the Minister of Finance. You need to look at precisely what we are trying to achieve. We, as the government, are responding to the current situation that the country faces. And it is why we have come up with a reconstruction and recovery plan, because we respond to the challenges as we see them. We don't sit back on our laurels and do nothing. And we've been doing that right from day one since this pandemic hit our country. And we continue to manage the health side as we manage the livelihood side. And now we are into recovery mode. And you spoke about the jobs. Yes, our unemployment has gone up. And in fact, the figures that came out today are a more correct reflection of what we had anticipated. The previous figures that came out had shown unemployment had gone down a bit, which was not a correct reflection, and because the Stats SA was not because of COVID able to do the data gathering. Now, these are the more truthful figures. They are shocking, but at the same time, they are realistic. But if you listened carefully or looked at the report carefully, you will have seen that some green shoots are beginning to emerge. About 543,000 jobs have already been created in the formal sector, yes, as well as in the informal sector, in agriculture. Already we can see that economic activity is coming back and jobs are being created. Yes, we've lost 2 million jobs because the retrenchments have been ongoing, but those two will be arrested, and we will begin to see more and more green shoots beginning to emerge. So that is the trajectory that we are on now. But the good thing is that the government has responded, has not sat back and not responded. We have responded and put a plan before the nation. And may I remind you that this is a plan that has enjoyed consensus. It's a plan that was, in the main, crafted out of discussions with the various key stakeholders in our economy. And government's job was to put it together and then put it to the nation. And right now, that plan is being implemented. And it is going to continue creating jobs and regaining some of the jobs that were lost. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, the Honorable President. The Honorable Mautwe.
Thank you very much, House Chair. President, it looks like the word shocking is your nickname, because everything that happens in this country, you come and tell us that it's shocking. It is you, when we were campaigning last year, that you said you're going to create jobs. You stand here today and you are saying the statistics is accurate that people are losing jobs. So it means you lied to the people of South Africa, and you must admit to that. But anyway, my question is, President,
on a point of
when
order,
the Financial and Fiscal Commission made a submission to the Standing Committee on Finance...
Honorable Mautwe, please, just a bit, there's a point of order.
Chairperson, I'm rising on Rule 84 that you must not use unparliamentary language in Parliament. The members just said the President is lying. So I request you to rule on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mautwe, the point of order is sustained. Rule 84 says that, and we don't call each member in this House a liar. Can you please withdraw that and proceed?
I withdraw a liar, but he misled the people of South Africa.
Honorable member, please just withdraw.
I withdraw liar.
Thank you. Continue.
Thank you. President, you misled the people of South Africa. You said you're going to create jobs, and you are telling us today that it is an accurate statistic that the people are losing jobs. But anyway, when the Financial and Fiscal Commission made their submission in the Standing Committee on Finance on the medium-term budget policy statement, they proposed that conditional grants to provinces and local government that are aimed to improve the delivery of basic services, such as water, sanitation, and creation of human settlement that is often neglected and under-budgeted for, should be used to address economic barriers and social inequality by localizing products value chain, meaning that grants framework should incentivize localization to permit procurement of goods only if they are made or assembled locally within South African borders. Now, President, you agree with this proposal, and if yes, when can we expect draft legislation to make this a reality?
Thank you. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. If the member has taken the trouble to either listen very carefully to the presentation of the reconstruction and recovery plan that we put forward, or had taken the trouble to read that plan, the honorable member would have seen that the issue of localization is a key component, a key priority of this plan, that we want to boost the economic growth of our country by localization. And we are saying we want whatever material, whatever goods that are going to be utilized in, say, infrastructure going forward, to be locally made, to be locally procured, so as to boost local businesses, cooperatives, small and medium enterprises, and so that our people can benefit through the creation of jobs, through the sharing of skills. That is precisely what our plan is all about. Now, all these are going to be fully outlined by our ministers who are dealing with economic sectors, and they are going to be outlining precisely how this localization is going to be achieved. The priorities that we have set out are important priorities to boost economic growth and to create jobs. And if the honorable member listen very carefully, this plan is about creating jobs. We want to create jobs, and in fact, the job creation process is already underway. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, the Honorable the President. Mhlonishwa babungwezi, ithuba ngelakho. Mhlonishwa Ngwezi, IFP. Mr. Singh, come to our rescue as usual. Is Honorable Ngwezi on the platform? Honorable, yes, yes. Who's that?
It's the Honorable Van der Merwe.
Okay.
Could we quickly just check where Mr. Ngwezi is, and then can we come back to him if possible?
Unfortunately, he's the last to ask the follow-up question, and once we proceed to the next question, we're not coming back. Can you ask the question if you have it, or just ask Honorable Singh, are you on the platform? Anyone who is on the platform who can assist?
Honorable House Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Sengwa.
No, thank you very much, and we apologize for this confusion. Honorable Ngwezi is having some connection issues.
Okay.
But Honorable Chair, at the heart of the issues that have been raised is the fact that the economy is not doing well, and COVID-19 has compounded our problems. So had we done the right things prior to this lockdown? So, Mr. President, what lessons are we taking out of a battered economy? And of course, understanding the fact that if we do the right things during the normal times, when we're confronted with a problem, would have been able to mitigate against those shortcomings. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Sengwa. The Honorable the President.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable House Chair and Honorable Member. Yes, our economy is not doing well. That is a statement that I think everybody knows is accurate. And it is to this end that we have come up with a reconstruction and recovery plan. Had we acted differently, maybe the situation that we are in could have been a lot better. We delayed in embarking on our reforms. There are reforms that we should have embarked upon a lot earlier. For instance, the spectrum, we should have issued that much earlier. We've delayed by a couple of years, and that would have led to the opening up of our economy. We did delay on embarking on an infrastructure build. Leading up to 2010, we focused on infrastructure build in a very robust manner, in a manner that dazzled even people from outside our country. And thereafter, it started tapering down. And our spend, public spend on infrastructure and indeed in the economy started tapering off. And there are quite a number of reasons for all these. And right now, we are in rebuilding mode. We are in reconstruction mode. We are correcting the mistakes of the past. And as we are doing so, we are saying, yes, let us work together. Because as we work together, we will be able to reposition our economy and reposition it in a way where we will be able to create jobs. Our electricity challenges are a case in point. For quite a long time, our electricity company did not focus so much on the maintenance of our power stations. And because of that, we then had to face up to a lot of load shedding. So the reasons are quite numerous, but we've decided and collectively with our social partners, we've decided that we must now focus on the future. We must build the future now. We must concentrate on putting right what is wrong, correcting some of the errors that we made in the past. We also allowed corruption to explode in a number of our state-owned enterprises. And all that is now being corrected. And we are now ready. As we are doing, we are moving forward and saying, we've learned our lessons. We must now embark on the reforms and implement the reforms that are necessary, release the spectrum, ensure that our energy security is in good place, allow independent generators of electricity to happen, and restructure ESCOM. So all that is moving forward. And as we do all that, as we implement all these measures, we will be able to reap the benefits of the things that we are going to be embarking on. So I think we are in the future going to be in a good space, and that is also recognized. We're going to be holding our investment conference in a few days, next week, in fact. And already we're finding that the interest that investors are putting in our country is very, very interesting. They can see our seriousness in implementing our reforms. They see that we are serious in rebuilding our economy, and they've told us very clearly, the more we can see that government is serious, we will work with you, because we still believe in this market, they say. This is a market that still has growth. But then they also say, we see you as the one economy on the continent which is really going to drive the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement, where you're going to be the real engine of manufacturing base, producing goods that will be carted off and exported into the continent. So there are great opportunities, and these are the opportunities that stand out there for us to go and grab. And it is for that reason that we are rebuilding, we are reconstructing. And I firmly believe that we are now on the right path, largely because we're focusing on implementation. And I've been saying to my colleagues in cabinet that I'm no longer interested in stories and excuses. All I want as president is implementation. Come and tell me that we're implementing this, we're going to open this, we're going to launch this, then yes, we are friends. Don't come and tell me about problems, problems that are going to make things difficult. So I think we are now on a very good trajectory going forward. We will be able to inject growth into the economy of our country. We've got all the levers and we know all the problems, and we will be able to drive this economy going forward. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable President. As I invite you to respond to question 16 from the Honorable Hendricks, I should also welcome the Speaker of the National Assembly to proceed. The Honorable the President.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable Speaker, and honorable members. There is no place for religious intolerance of any sort in democratic South Africa. Our Constitution is clear that no person may be discriminated against on the basis of, among other things, their religion, their conscience, their beliefs, their culture, or their language. In addition, the Bill of Rights states that everyone has the right of freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion. Even as we grapple with a past that's riddled with divisions and conflict, we are a society characterized by religious tolerance and a deep respect for the great diversity of beliefs and cultures that exist in our beautiful country. In addition, we have established institutions and enacted legislation to prevent discrimination, to prevent hate speech and intolerance, and to promote understanding, friendship, and respect. The Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of the Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities, for example, is established in terms of our Constitution and has a broad mandate to promote and advance tolerance, friendship, humanity, as well as national unity, with a view of fostering national cohesion and social cohesion. The Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act of 2001 prohibits hate speech and provides for equality courts at which complaints of discrimination and allegations of hate speech are adjudicated. In short, South Africa has a progressive constitutional and legislative framework to address intolerance, hate speech, and discrimination. It provides avenues for any individual or groups who experience discrimination of any sort to protect their rights and to seek redress. And while these formal mechanisms are important, they are not enough on their own to end the victimization or vilification of any particular grouping in our country. As the honorable member notes, there needs to be a conscious and deliberate effort across society to prevent intolerance, whether this takes the form of Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, whether it is sexism or xenophobia. This requires the clear condemnation of all overt acts of intolerance, But it also requires greater awareness about the more subtle ways in which prejudices can be expressed, acted out, and reinforced. This places a responsibility on our media outlets, on officials, leaders, and members of the public in general to avoid language that casts aspersions on a particular religion, cultural group, language, or race. With the laws and institutions we have in place, which will be reinforced by the passage of the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill, we have a robust legal framework to deal with anyone promoting discrimination and intolerance. The greater challenge we have, which is a responsibility we all share, is to work together to rid our society of such attitudes, as well as practices altogether, so that all these practices, prejudices, hatreds should be dumped into the dustbin of history. And people of South Africa must demonstrate their nationhood, their unity, acting as one against all these negative practices, because they have not served our nation well, as we well know from the past that we've had as a nation, when we lived under colonialism and apartheid oppression. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now call upon the Honorable Hendricks to take the first supplementary question on this question. Mr. Hendricks.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Our feedback, Honorable Speaker, to our President today on the peaceful nature of our religion, Islam, and the aspirations to be seen as a peaceful community is, Honorable Speaker, to help the initiative to silence the guns in Africa, which is at the heart of Agenda 2063 and which is being implemented in earnest from September this year. To realize a conflict-free Africa, families must be peaceful and communities must be peaceful. And as we go from community to community in South Africa and the rest of the African continent to share this, we hope the Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa will also see this as a positive contribution to help silence the guns on the African continent. I agree with the President that we must also, as communities, play our part. On a lighter note, Honorable Speaker, you know, we only have one seat in Parliament. So we don't get any cheers and we don't get any claps. But I think we deserve a cheer for winning our first Ward Council seat in South Africa after 13 years of campaigning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable the President, I think they do deserve a cheer, but the platform is yours now, Mr. President, to respond to the Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Speaker and Honorable Hendricks, if you are short of people who can cheer your party, you can count me as one of those who will cheer you and applaud you for your great success. It is actually quite phenomenal. And we applaud you and we wish you a greater success in the future as well. The task of silencing the guns on our continent is a mammoth task. It's mammoth in that we are a very big and expansive, beautiful continent of diverse nations, diverse people, but we are united by one thing, which is our Africanness. And it is for that reason that we need to unite, we need to rid our continent of strife, of conflict. It is a task that we are trying to execute. The African Union depicted this year as the year of silencing the guns. And I guess as a nation, there is a lot that we can impart to our sister countries on the continent, because we were able to silence the guns in 1994, and we've been able to embark on a journey of building a nation, embracing one another, based on the outstanding constitution that we have, that espouses the greatest of values that humanity can ever embrace. And those values are the glue that binds us all together. And at times we face challenges, serious challenges, where our unity is tested and shaken. But I am confident that as South Africans, we will forever remain united, because the majority of people in our country want unity, they want social cohesion, they want to see a South African nation that is united. And the gains that we won are gains that we want to defend and to protect. And those gains are about all those values that I spoke about earlier: respect for each and everyone's conscience, religion, culture, language, and the dignity of each one of us. These are sacrosanct values that we must forever guard. The sense of intolerance is something that must disappear in our country as we emerge as more and more of a united nation. So thank you very much for having posed the question.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Peter May, please mute your mic. The next follow-up, Honorable President, is by the Honorable Jumat Peterson. Mayor Peterson.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable President, your reply reaffirms what we have all come to understand, that our Constitution and our judicial systems provide more than adequate support and defense for any religious belief in the Republic. Honorable President, besides Agenda 2063, we also have our recently signed Africa Free Trade Agreement to assist our country and the countries on our continent to bring not only social cohesion, as you said. How then will this develop into good governance and economic cohesion as well? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Member. Agenda 2063 is our lodestar as a continent. Our lodestar in as far as seeking to develop our continent and to reach the higher levels of human development. And we as a nation are also guided by another lodestar, a lodestar which is our Constitution, and we've got our plan, the National Development Plan. And through this, the various interventions such as the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement are enablers that can make us to grow economically. And with economic growth, we are then able to foster more and more social cohesion, because it is when we grow economically that we are able to develop. And as we develop in all forms of human endeavor, at the education level, at the science level, at the social level, economic level, empowerment of women, empowerment of our young people, and we rid our continent of all the ills that beset it. So economic growth, therefore, becomes one of those key driving forces that can enable us to achieve the aspirations that are set out in 2063, but at the same time, in our case, the National Development Plan, which will enable us to be active participants as well in the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement. And that agreement on its own is going to be a key key lever on which we can grow our economy. And of course, many other countries on our continent are hoping that the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement is also going to yield that. And through that, we will be able to industrialize not only our country, but the continent as well. We will be able to trade with each other instead of a number of our countries trading outside with outside countries outside of our continent. So great opportunities lie ahead, but the greatest opportunity, I think, is how we are going to foster our own unity as Africans, how our African Renaissance is going to come into its own, and we are going to develop, because this is the African century. We must grasp it, and we are fortunate that our forebears established the OAU, now the AU, which is bringing us all together and enabling us to address and solve our problems even as they arise. And we do have our challenges, we do have problems, but we've got a vehicle through which we can address our problems, because we want African problems to be solved by Africans, and which is precisely what we are focusing on. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The third supplementary goes to the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. President, I'm very glad you spoke about silencing the guns, because more than 50 people have been beheaded in Mozambique by attackers linked to ISIS. Women have been kidnapped, villages have been looted and then set on fire. ISIS is clearly a growing threat in our region. Meanwhile, our Minister of Public Works, Honourable De Lille, has built a washing line fence that wouldn't even keep a small little bokkie out of South Africa. Mr. President, let me ask the question the chairperson of police should have asked you, and that is, what steps is your government taking to keep South Africans safe from ISIS insurgency into our country?
Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The challenges that our sister country and neighbor, Mozambique, is facing is top of mind to many of us who are in our SADC region, and we've met on a few occasions, and our various ministers who do various tasks to keep our countries safe have been meeting and have been looking at how we can continue keeping our people safe. A lot is being done, a lot is being looked at, and at the SADC level, we're going to be even meeting in a few days where we are going to discuss precisely that challenge and indeed other challenges that beset our region. So I'd like Honourable Member to be rest assured that we are busy as it is now. We are looking at a whole number of options in terms of how we can continue keeping the people of South Africa safe. And I hope he understands precisely what I am saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last supplementary on this question goes to the Honourable Singh. Honourable Singh.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable President, I want to acknowledge the fact that you have spoken about social cohesion on a number of occasions. We've had a lot of talk, but action still eludes us. Honourable President, on the 16th of November, we celebrate the 160th anniversary of the arrival of Indian indentured labourers to South Africa. Since 1860, the Indian community in South Africa has made an indelible mark on the fabric of our country, not just in trade and profession, but as freedom fighters and activists that contributed to the fight against apartheid and South Africa's transition to a constitutional democracy. Also this weekend, Honourable President, thousands of Indians from our Hindu community celebrate Diwali, the festival of lights, which is a triumph of good over evil. And we would do well to remember that in South Africa, we face the evil of corruption. This evil which tears at the social fabric of our society. can only be defeated if we all work together. As the IFP, we want to wish the community well, and I trust you would also do the same, Mr. President. But my question is, while we talk about social cohesion, there are still prominent leaders amongst us who still call those of us who are quote-unquote minorities visitors to this country rather than citizens. What would you do to stop this kind of talk, Honorable President? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Singh. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Member. I'd like to say that indeed we know that the Hindi community is celebrating Diwali. I've never been fortunate enough to be invited to a Diwali function or festivity. I'm hoping that one day you will invite me so that I can also come and partake in the cultural expression of our Hindi community, because I've always seen it as being colorful, beautiful, and of course the food that goes with that has always been, in my eyes, very, very appetizing. So I'm offering you an opening to invite me when you can. The Indian community in our country, having arrived, yes, in 1860, has made a huge contribution to the life of our country as a whole in many, 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 many ways. And they are valued citizens of our country. And I abhor this notion of regarding citizens or groupings of citizens in our country as minorities. I don't believe in this talk of certain groupings in our country being regarded as minorities. We are all South African citizens. If we say others are minorities, who are the majorities? Because once you begin having that notion, you begin having a sense that, you know, the others are less important. I would like to see all of us as South Africans embracing one another, regarding each other as South Africans completely and wholesomely, and looking at each other first as South Africans. Like I look at myself first as a South African, and thereafter, yes, I'll become my own cultural group because we pursue a particular cultural practice and all that, and a language, but I'm a South African first, and I'd like to see everyone regarding themselves as South Africans. There is no one who should regard themselves as an outsider. After all, the lodestar policy document of my movement is the Freedom Charter, which in many ways has been embedded in our constitution, clearly says that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Now, with that in mind, the citizens of this country cannot be minorities. We are all majorities. We are this majority population of South Africa. So I'd like to disabuse those who regard others as minorities. They are South African citizens. So we need to celebrate one another. We need to applaud one another, particularly our cultures, particularly our languages. I should, and I do feel so much at home when I listen to a language that is not my mother tongue. And I just so revel in it and feel that this is also my language. When I hear anybody speaking in isiXhosa, isiZulu, Sepedi, Setswana, I just listen to the beauty, the sheer beauty of our languages, and that is what should unite us, so that we should see ourselves as one people, having a social cohesion that is the glue that binds us all together. So I agree with you completely. we should celebrate one another. Thank you very much.
President, that is Honorable President, we proceed on to our next question, which is question number 17, and it was put to you by the Honorable Skosana. I therefore invite you, Mr. President.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, in many ways, Africa's colonial past has continued to shape its economic development over recent decades. Just as colonial powers extracted the continent's wealth for their own benefit and enrichment and upliftment and development, today African economies participate in the global economy primarily as a source of minerals and commodity, while the production of higher-end value-added manufactured products take place elsewhere. The vision of African leaders today is aimed at breaking this pattern. We are determined to build strong and inclusive economies through industrialization and the beneficiation of the minerals and commodities that are extracted from the African soil in our countries. The African Continental Free Trade Area is a significant development that will change trade patterns and has the potential to transform African economies. It will encourage economic diversification. It will also encourage beneficiation of our minerals and resources and value addition so that we can seize the opportunities arising from an increasingly open African continental market. We expect that in the new year, 2021, preferential trade in Africa will begin with significant product coverage and will be further expanded over the coming years. Even prior to the agreement on the Continental Free Trade Area, South Africa had already begun implementing an investment-led trade strategy. South Africa has sought to use its outward foreign direct investment in the rest of our continent to encourage balanced growth and localization. Government has been working to prepare South Africa-based firms for their participation in the African Continental Free Trade Area. We want to ensure that our firms, our entrepreneurs, small and big, as well as workers, benefit from the trading opportunities that will arise as the ACFTA commences to operate. Government has a number of interventions to support South Africans that want to trade and do business in other African countries. The empowerment of Black-owned firms, women and youth-led and owned firms through export readiness and export capacity is at the top of this agenda. For example, the National Exporter Development Program supports both emerging and established exporters to increase the number of South African exporters and effectively grow exports of value-added goods over time. In the last financial year, 1,029 emerging exporters completed training, of whom 1,006 were Black-owned, 494 were women-owned, and 227 were youth-owned. This is a phenomenal achievement. 88 women-owned companies were assisted to promote their goods and services through various trade promotion and marketing events in the continent. Between 2014 and 2018, South African firms invested well over $10 billion, around 160 billion rand, in different parts of the continent. And this has made South Africa the 5th largest source of foreign direct investment on our continent in value, behind the US, France, the UK, and China. Much remains to be done, but we believe strongly that Africans have now put the continent on the path to sustained and strong economic growth. We want to see platforms like the one that we have created, which is the medicines procurement platform, which we created as a result of COVID. We want to see, I personally want to see that platform being expanded so that African entrepreneurs, business people can start trading together on that platform. Yesterday, in wonderment, I saw how the Chinese have been trading on their platform, where yesterday, which they called Singles Day, on Alibaba, their trading amounted to almost 900 billion South African rands, almost R1 trillion, just in one day. And I believe with the population we have on our continent, we would have the capacity, we would have the ability to trade across the continent with each other, where we buy goods from other countries and set up a very robust and effective logistic system or network. And that future is beckoning. That future is calling us to be part of a trading Africa, just like our forebears used to trade with one another and with other parts of the world. I believe that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is beckoning us that we should trade with one another, and one day we should trade so big with one another that we should even exceed what an Alibaba was able to achieve just in one day of trading yesterday, when they almost traded R1 trillion in just one day. The future is bright for our continent. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first supplementary goes to the Honorable Skosana. You have the floor.
Ngiyathokoza hlonitshwa somlomo begodu ngiyathokoza nakuhlonitshwa umongameli ngempendulo yakhe enqophileko begodu ezwakala kuhle kwamabala. Ngithokoza kuzala izandla zombili. Mhlonitshwa mongameli, the reconstruction and recovery plan that you delivered on the 21st October in a joint sitting of Parliament refers to a South Africa that trades intensely with the continent and takes full advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The harmonization of road and rail infrastructure on the continent, together with an active regional industrial strategy that is funded, is critical to the success of the Continental Plan. This being the case, an assessment of the risk factors informs us that energy, communications, transport, and water remain key inhibitors to the successful implementation of the Agenda 2063 strategy. So, Mhlonishwa Mongameli, what work is being done to to address these risk factors, which, if not addressed, will limit the continent's growth. Ngiyathokoza.
Ngithokozile baba. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and honorable members. Yes, we as the AU have prioritized the development of these logistics that you're talking about, infrastructure, on our continent, fully knowing that there are quite a number of risks. But having identified the risks, we've nonetheless decided that we should manage those risks. South Africa is a champion of infrastructure development on our continent. This started way before I even came onto the scene. And we've been trusted by the continent to foster and to develop and to lead the infrastructure process on our continent. And that speaks to precisely the issues that the honorable member has raised: transport, the waterways, energy, roads. All these are infrastructure-related projects that have to be put up so that we can foster the interconnectedness of the continent. But we've also decided that it should start at the regional level. We've got the regional economic communities, which we call the RECs on our continent, and all the regional economic activities, communities rather, have become so active at an economic level that they are focusing on integration of their economies. And as they foster integration at an economic level, infrastructure follows in tandem. If you just look at the developments that are taking place on the continent, they are just mind-boggling. In all the regional economic communities on our continent, we ourselves here in SADC are fostering the integration of our region economically, and we're looking at joint projects that we can launch amongst us with a view of ensuring that at a logistical level we become ready to be active participants in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area agreement. So the risks are there, but they've got to be managed. And so far, we've been finding ways of managing the risks. And this is the beauty of having a uniting organization like the AU, but also in our region, in Southern Africa, having a regional integration organization like SADC. So that helps us to manage the risks and to reduce the risks substantially. And we look at SADC as one market, and we look obviously at the continent as another huge market. And as we minimize the risks, the markets keep growing. And we are committed that the only way forward is for us to manage these risks and remove the impediments, develop infrastructure, and make sure that we grow our respective economies and we form those linkages, and linkages that can be beneficial to all of us all the time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Akhbaralet Swart.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable President, the Africa Free Trade Area presents a major opportunity for African countries to lift more than 30 million people out of extreme poverty, and this the ACDP clearly supports. South Africa can play a key role in this regard, as you said earlier, the engine room for manufacturing. Honourable President, COVID-19, however, has caused major disruptions to trade across the continent, including in critical goods such as medical supplies and food. The question then is, what role can the potential gains from the free trade area play in offsetting the losses suffered by COVID-19? And does the Honourable President agree that it would help African countries increase their resilience in the face of possible future economic shocks, such as caused by COVID-19? I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swart. The Honourable the President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Member, the first thing, of course, is what I will now call a great endowment, is the AU, the African Union itself, because it is a body that unites us all. It's an endowment from our forebears. They had foresight to establish this organization, an organization that now binds us together, an organization that enables us to talk to each other, to get to learn from each other, to know each other, and to work together and cooperate together. So through this, we're then able to find unity of purpose in a number of areas, and going also beyond just the political, we find unity of purpose on economic issues, on social issues, and now we've also found unity of purpose on health matters, where we've been able, during the period of COVID, to unite our efforts, our intellectual property, our work-related capability to work together through the AU to craft a clear strategy to set up, as I said, a health procurement platform, and that in itself is a precursor of what lies ahead, what lies in the future, to be able to enable us to set up trade routes, if you like, to set up these trade enabling processes so that we are able to benefit all of us. You say the AfCFTA can lift up to 30 million people. I see it doing much more than that. I see it lifting all the boats at the same time and lifting as many boats as possible, running into millions and millions of Africans. This is one of the greatest opportunity for the African continent, and possibly the first greatest one was just to establish the OAU, now the AU, to forge unity amongst us. Now we have something that's really practical, that's pragmatic, that we can all work around, which is the trading platform that we are creating to be able to integrate the continent as a whole. So this is a great boon for us, and it is a great opportunity which we must exploit to good effect. And I believe that we as South Africans will be able to exploit it to good effect, because we've got a strong manufacturing base, we've got a strong industrial base, which we now need to re-crank or crank back into life more effectively, because there is the entire African continent's market calling us to come and do business. So the future for us is a bright one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next supplementary goes to the Honourable Mentor. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. President, you would agree with me that at the center of African continental free trade is a massive African economic development. Therefore, massive development of local industries in Africa to create sustainable jobs is utmost important. Taking from the statistics you've given earlier, we need to tip the scale much more.
Mente, we have lost you. Can you just repeat yourself, ma'am?
Okay.
Mente?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We have lost you. You will just have to repeat yourself, ma'am, please. We lost you somewhere in between.
All right. Can you hear me now, Speaker?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. President, you will agree with me that at the center of African continental free trade is a massive African economic development. Therefore, massive development of local industries in Africa to create sustainable jobs is utmost important.
We've lost you again. Mente, we've lost you again.
Mente is muted.
Honorable Minister, mute yourself, please. Honorable Mente, unmute yourself.
Honorable Speaker, I'm informed that she's off, or she's back now.
She's off. Can we have somebody from the EFF then to take her place?
Can I take the question?
Yes, please, Mr. Shpambo.
No, thank you very much. So the question, President, is that increased intra-African trade requires that all African countries should have solid and reliable industrial bases so that they can trade goods and products that are made in Africa. Now, in South African context, government continues to spend billions of rands on goods and services that are not made in South Africa, while if they were made in South Africa, many jobs will be created and the economy was going to expand. And because the regulations and the social compacts on localizations have failed time and again, don't you think that we should amend all the procurement legislation at all spheres of government and all state-owned companies to enforce local procurement by all state institutions? Would you support an amendment of the PFMA and the MFMA that places at the center of state procurement the fact that we should build local industrial capacity, particularly in the manufacturing sector? That is the question.
Thank you, Ndete Shbambo. The Honorable the President.
Honorable Speaker and Honorable Member, we have, as I said earlier, identified localization as a key priority in our reconstruction and recovery plan. It stands there boldly to enable us to focus on localization and never forget that localization is going to be one of the key enablers to boost our local manufacturing processes, to help to support those who operate in local businesses. And indeed, the state is a procurer of goods and services. And we are saying that when the state procures goods and services, it must insist on procuring locally made goods. Now, our infrastructure trajectory is underpinned by that whenever we also embark on infrastructure processes, we want the goods that go into the infrastructure build should be locally made. Now, we want, therefore, to support this commitment through ensuring that the regulatory framework supports precisely that. And if it requires the amendment of the PFMA, if it requires the amendment of whatever regulation, so be it, because our strategic objective in this regard is to use localization to create jobs, is to use localization to enhance manufacturing capability and capacity in our country. So we have a multiplicity of objectives that we want to achieve, including the empowerment of women, the empowerment of young people, and there should be clear set-asides for Black-owned businesses, and this is where our Black industrialists can come into their own, new ones, established ones, small and medium enterprises, cooperatives, and this is what we should then use to help to either boost those cooperatives or see them established and support them, but in the end also to make sure that the government pays on time. So all these are the multiplicity of interventions that we need to take to give full effect to localization. We'd like to see us go beyond just localization speak. We must now talk about localization implementation, and it should operate through a plethora of ways, institutions, so long as in the end we localize and we buy local, because as I've said in the past, local is truly lekker, and that's what we should do. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last supplementary question will be put to you by the Honorable M. Shengwa.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, it's good that you are also the chairperson of the AU at this current juncture. And so all the things that you speak about, you are in a better position to influence. At the heart of the trade you speak about and economic growth and development of the continent is coherence, certainty, and decisiveness on the part of the AU on one hand, but also at the same time, it's the issues of peace and stability and security on the continent generally. And so as we look at things such as SARS in Nigeria and the tensions around elections in Tanzania, Uganda, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and the coup in Mali, where we are all looking forward to and expecting elections that are free and fair and free from fear, and creating a conducive environment for the trade that you speak about. Are you satisfied that all these things that are requirements are being met and are being done? And what interventions decisively is the AU carrying out to deal with these prevailing challenges, which may be a hindrance to the dreams, hopes, and aspirations of the African people insofar as equality, job creation, security, and peace and trade are concerned? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I did say earlier that one of our key endowments is the African Union as the people of our continent. An endowment that is standing us in good stead in as far as forging unity amongst the peoples of our continent, both at a regional level through our regional economic communities, as well as at a continental level. Our task is to ensure that we foster that unity, and in fostering that unity is also to help each other deal with the challenges that we may each face from time to time. Where, for instance, if an election is held, the African continent through the AU is able to come and observe and support the election effort that is taking place in a particular country. Where there are disasters, we help one another. Where there are wars, we make interventions. And recently, we have been able to participate in a peace process in South Sudan, where Deputy President David Mabuza was actively involved following my tenure in the past as Deputy President, he was actively involved in finally getting the warring parties in that country to come together and reach a peace settlement, and now they've set up a joint government where they are working together. And beyond that, the dividend they are going to reap is economic development. Peace breeds development and economic growth. So that is one of the key things that we have been able to do, and it's good that we've been able to do it during our chairship. In Libya, the warring parties have been going on with their war, and we've participated in ensuring that there is a ceasefire between Prime Minister Sarraj's forces and Field Marshal Haftar's forces. And I spoke to both of them last week. They want South Africa to continue helping them to consolidate and cement the peace that they so yearn for. We've been involved in the negotiations of the GERD, the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, where Egypt and Ethiopia and Sudan have not been seeing eye to eye. Minister of International Relations is involved, together with Ambassador Majola. They're both involved in piecing the negotiations together, and I'll be calling them at a Bureau Summit so that we can take the peace work forward. Now there are challenges in Ethiopia, and we are involved in trying to see how best those internal challenges that they are facing should be addressed. And in various other parts of the continent, we get involved. Tanzania has held an election, and of course, many elections often yield a different type of outcomes, outcomes that the country themselves needs to settle down and deal with. And it is only when they fail completely that we are able to give support. And all this is being done, and many others that I have not really had the time to mention. All this is being done with a view of ensuring that in the end there is one peace and understanding on our continent, so as to foster the economic development that must clearly be a dividend from the peace process that we've been supporting, that we've been overseeing on our continent. So much work needs to be done, but we've built a fairly strong foundation, in our forebears bequeathed to us the ability for us to be able to face up with each other and talk robustly with a view of finding one another and installing peace in our respective countries. And this is the time to be a proud African, all of us, because the continent is becoming more and more united. And this is when I would say the African Renaissance is truly underway, because we are beginning to appreciate each other more and more, and how we are able to support each other on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we go on to our last question of the day. It is question number 18. It was put to the question by the Honorable Bongo. Mr. President, I invite you.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, our country still bears the scars of its horrible past, a past of racial division and conflict. Racism takes many forms, as we all know. It can be found in people's attitudes and utterances, in how they behave towards each other, in who gets hired for a job or who gets promoted, and what benefit so-and-so derives from whatever process. Racial divisions are found in the structure of our economy, in the distribution of skills, land, and other assets, in access to services, and in the spatial design of our cities, our towns, and our rural areas. These are the divisions that we have been working hard to overcome over the course of the last 26 years of our democracy. And this is the path we chose. It remains our greatest and most important challenge. The vast majority of South Africans, black and white, support the work that needs to be done to overcome racism and racial inequality. According to the South African Reconciliation Barometer of 2019, published by the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation, 71% of South Africans believe that a united South Africa is possible. 7 out of every 10 South Africans, we are told, agree that despite our differences, there is more that unites us as a people than what keeps us apart. The events that took place in Senegal last month following the murder of Brendan Horner are therefore a clear challenge to the views and the wishes of the majority of South Africa's people across all race groups. The racial polarization that characterized the protests in Senegal and indeed more recently at Brackenfell High School were deeply disturbing, and I was deeply concerned about them because they go against the kind of society we are seeking to build. They demonstrate the extent to which racial attitudes still infect our society and how quickly they can resurface at moments of crisis. At the same time, we need to acknowledge that the situation in Senegal was quickly diffused. The law is being allowed to take its course, and the racial rhetoric that accompanied the protests was condemned by organizations as well as by individuals across society. Now, Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, while the Senegal and Brackenfell incidents show how much of our past remains with us, they do not reflect the broader South African reality. We are a country that has changed for the better over the last 26 years. Our task now, not just as government, but as broader society, is to act together to end all forms of racism, racial division, and racial inequality. We need to consistently confront racist attitudes and condemn all instances of racist behavior. Now, those who want to perpetuate racial tensions must know they are in a dwindling minority. We continue through our policies and programs to reduce the material inequality between white and black South Africans, just as we want to address the differences between men and women. From the provision of the free basic services to building of houses, from improving public transport to providing social support, from no-fee schools to free tertiary education for the poor, we are pursuing a policy of progressive redistribution. It is this goal, Honorable Speaker, of reducing inequality that informs our approach to the national health insurance, to the development of township and rural economies, to the accelerated redistribution of land. Now, with this, we also want to support our Black industrialists. We want to support emerging Black businesses that are led by women, that are led by young people. By making progress in these areas in increasing levels of investment and creating jobs on a far larger scale, we will steadily reduce the material differences between Black and white South Africans. In doing so, we will improve the conditions for lasting reconciliation and unity in our country. This is a task to which the government is committed and to which the vast majority of South Africans, Black and white, are committed. And this is what we should celebrate. This is what we should applaud, because in that regard, we are setting ourselves apart as a people who are committed to live together, to work together, to progress together, and be a nation that is united. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first supplementary goes to the Honorable Bongo. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And thank you very much, Honorable the President. Honorable the President, the sacrifices made by our forebears in securing a political and economic freedom in South Africa in order to build a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, united and a prosperous South Africa cannot be understated. Incidents such as the one in Senegal and lately the one in Cape Town are of a serious concern to South Africans. What practical steps have government put in place in ensuring that this noble goal, as espoused by our forebears, does not or does get to be achieved without faith? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable the President.
Honorable Speaker, what we are called upon to do is to continue subscribing to the values that are set out in our Constitution. The values of not being intolerant, values of tolerance, values of nation building, values of social cohesion. That is what we are called upon to do. And values also of reconciliation. That is what we should, as South Africans, be doing, and embracing one another, but also showing a deep sense of common understanding. And also understanding that we come from different historical experiences, where in some cases, some were oppressors, some were the oppressed. But also remembering that in 1994, we came together and forged a common future. And once we realized that we've got a common future, we're then able to work together in a very organic way, where we are able to embrace one another and to forgo racist tendencies, to forgo insulting tendencies to one another, or any sign of intolerance. Government would want our nation to extend hands to one another, that where there are signs of conflict and difference, we should be able to sit down and discuss the matters and have organizations that are going to help us in achieving that. And it could be various organizations that promote reconciliation, that promote unity, rather than go on a conflictual type of relationship where nobody really truly wins. We should say in 1994, we drew a line in the sand and said, we forgo any strife, any conflict. We're now embracing one another. We used to be on opposite sides and enemies, but now providence has brought us together. What our forebears were able to achieve has brought us together, and that's precisely the path that we should take. So it is really about demonstrating understanding and tolerance amongst us. There's a lot that takes place, and we don't have to do everything all at once, but we do need to do certain things, because in the end, we don't want this country to descend into a civil war type of situation, as though we do not have our thinking faculties. We need to be extending hands to one another and forge a unity. That is what we ought to be doing. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now call upon the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Steenhuisen, to take the second supplementary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the violent confrontation that we witnessed in Senegal, followed on from a horrific farm attack, is a direct consequence of not getting abilities to be able to heal the racial divisions in South Africa. Now, the founding provision of the Constitution, a document all of us and you, Mr. President, swore to uphold when you were inaugurated, demands that we build a nation based on, and it's very clear, non-racialism. And yet, for the past quarter of a century, we have, and the party you lead, Mr. President, has continued to keep South Africans divided on the basis of race. Now, I've taken great heart from what you've said today, and by your answer to question 16, where you said we must see each other as South Africans first, and other things after that. And yet we enforce racial quotas on all spheres of society. We judge people on the basis of race when they apply for jobs in the public sector. And BE billionaires have used race as a means to hijack empowerment and have crowded out the 30 million people who live in poverty in this country who need that empowerment the most. In Senegal, we see the results of what happens when a government keeps people apart. Race-based policies are tearing our country apart. Mr. President, would you, in light of what you've said today, commit yourself to non-racialism and ensuring that we scrap all policies that seek to divide South Africans based on something as arbitrary as their skin color? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steenhuisen. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable members. The commitment that we all made when we subscribed to our Constitution and adopted it, irrevocably committed all of us as South Africans to forego racist practices and to embrace a country that is based on the respect of the rights of all our people, and especially equality. I would urge the honorable member to carefully go and study this Constitution and look at the right or the provision that deals with equality in our Constitution. Equality that did not exist in this country, where one race was preferred over another, one race was privileged over another, where that one race that was privileged over another has continued to reap the benefits of the privileges that they were offered and given under the oppressive regime of apartheid, where inequality reigned supreme. If you look very carefully at the provision in our Constitution which deals with equality, it says very clearly that in foregoing inequality, we need, as a nation, to take steps, demonstrable steps, to ensure that we, in the end, those who suffered under inequality provisions are able, in the end, to be lifted up, so that we should take steps that are going to lift them out of inequality. Now, that is clearly stated in our Constitution, and if we are indeed to live up to the provisions that are in our Constitution, we cannot then say, when provision is made to lift those up who were unprivileged, who were kept down because the others had to enjoy the privileges, that in itself is a racist act. And yet our Constitution is precisely about the very act of lifting everyone who in the past did not have the type of privileges that others had. Our government is not a racist government. Our government seeks to promote the rights and interests of all. Our government seeks to promote the rights of the women of our country, who over the years were the most oppressed. And so if we take steps to promote the interests of the women of our country, we are not being discriminatory against others. We are actually taking steps so that they too can reach a level of equality. If we take steps to promote Black economic empowerment, it is wrong for those who think that that is a racist policy. It is an empowering policy, and it should be embraced and applauded by all. If one is right up there at the top of the building and a ladder is put at the bottom and those who are at the bottom are enabled to go up the ladder, we should not be the ones to kick the ladder away. We should actually be saying we will hold this ladder firm so that you who are not where we are should be able to come up the ladder so that we can all be on the same level. That is what our policies are all about. They are empowering, and I am actually, frankly, surprised, I almost said shocked. I've been told not to use the term shocked. I am actually surprised at those who, having enjoyed the privileges of the past regime, take umbrage, are very angry, very upset when those who have never enjoyed those privileges are lifted up. We should be encouraging processes that will lift all boats. And if we are on a higher level, we should be saying, let's fill up the dam so that all boats can go up. So if we do that, then we demonstrate clearly that we abhor racism. We abhor what happened in the past, and we are about promoting the equality that our Constitution talks about, where, yes, national legislation must be enacted to prevent unfair discrimination, but also to ensure that everyone is lifted up. So that is the approach that we should all have. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Honorable Skosana, please put your mic off. Honorable Skosana, mute yourself. We now go on to the third supplementary question. It will be put to the President by the Honorable Malema. Morena, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I will take the question on behalf of the CIC.
Thank you very much. Proceed.
Speaker, President, I welcome that you've learned that you must not stay shocked anymore. President, there's some racist narrative based on some misguided false sense of superiority. We're going to deal with head on. Otherwise, we're really treating racists with kid gloves, and they will have mistaken us for some old generation, which we are not. We're going to deal with racists everywhere where we find them, especially racists who undermine women and shoot at them with live ammunition, and they think we will stand by and watch. It is not going to happen. The extent of farm murders in South Africa, President, is over-exaggerated. We want to make this point very clear. By the white minority for political and economic reasons. There are high levels of crime here in this country which are violent and result in murder. Women and children, particularly black women and children, are killed every day. In 2019-2020, only 49 murders that occurred were considered farm murder out of more than 21,300 recorded murder cases in this country. Even these are murder, just that they happen on a farm. This is compared to more than 3,000 cases of
Don't forget to make your supplementary question, ma'am.
I am, Speaker. So, President, based on this, what are you going to do besides legislation to stop gender-based violence today, to protect our women and children so that they can live freely in a safe country that you are leading?
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable the President.
Honorable Speaker and Honorable Member, the Honorable Member acknowledges that we are continuing to pass legislation that seeks to prevent gender-based violence, to protect the women of our country and the children of our country, and to make sure that if they do get subjected to gender-based violence, they are properly cared for and properly looked after. But beyond that, there are quite a number of other initiatives and interventions that we are making. We, through the National Strategic Plan, have a number of interventions. The interventions go beyond just directly dealing with issues of gender-based violence, but also touch on economic opportunities that need to be embarked upon to support our women and to promote their interests. So there's a plethora of matters or initiatives, and many of these, if I may remind the honorable member, are interventions that were crafted by the women of our country. And that is what pleases me a great deal, that they were not imposed on the women of our country by men. They were crafted by the women of our country, and they were then presented to us, and we've embraced them even at cabinet level. And so we are proceeding to embark on various interventions. And we are saying we will continue to be innovative, we will continue to be creative in the whole quest of protecting the women of our country, advancing their interests, and promoting their rights. That we will do without any fail, from the legislative arena right through to interventions that we need to take even at the economic level. And it is for this reason that we have placed the economic interests of the women of our country right ahead of other interests. When it comes to procurement, we want them to be the key beneficiaries. Why do we do that? Because we want the women of our country to be properly empowered. They are the ones who bring life to this country and to this world. They are the ones who nurture children of our country, and they are the ones who suffer the most. And therefore, we want them to be well positioned, and this government is determined to support the women of our country, and we will do whatever it takes to ensure that the women of South Africa are able to be well positioned and they enjoy their rights and we support them economically as well. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. We go on to our last supplementary question for the day. The Honorable Briet, you have the chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, after Senegal 1, your youth league made many outrageous and worrisome pronouncements that are not in keeping with a non-racial and united republic. Taking into account the current vulnerability of social cohesion and the vulnerability of our economy and high rate of unemployment, and knowing full well that the agriculture sector and thus farmers account for one of the largest economic contributions and remains one of our only sectors to show positive employment figures. Further taking into account that if we do not protect our farmers, food security will be in the balance. What are you going to do to ensure your own party do not contravene nation building and promote polarization of races? And will you reprimand the ANC Youth League for saying, if they want war, we are going to give them war? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
On a point of order, Speaker.
It is a point of order that I was almost calling for it myself, but now that you want to correct it yourself, please take the floor.
No, the Speaker on the floor mentioned the youth league, which doesn't exist. We can't talk about imaginary things because there's no such thing as youth league, and how do we even entertain things that are not there?
Honorable Shibambo, that's not a point of order. I thought you were going to own up that you actually promised war if people asked for it. Honorable President, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Speaker, I see that Honorable Shibambo is displaying a smirk on his face, but he talks about a youth league. He does not say which youth league, because I know that a number of parties have their own youth leagues. So I don't know which one he's talking about, but that is just an aside. More directly, I would say that no one in South Africa should be talking about war. War is a very dangerous phenomenon. And I think those who talk about war are playing with fire. They should see what war does in other countries, where war is unleashed among citizens. There's nothing there that is benefited by anyone. We've seen it, literally myself and the DP has seen it in countries like South Sudan. War is just a road towards attrition, towards suffering, towards everything that is wrong in the human development area of things. So we should never talk about war. And I would say that that should actually be the language that should be banned by all of us as South Africans. We do not want to see war in our country. We are a country that has emerged from the worst of human degradation, which really was a war against the citizens of our country. And we must forgo that. That belongs in the past. What we are about is that we are nation builders. We will always differ, we will always have difficulties, but we should be committed to finding solutions on an ongoing basis. And when it comes to our people as a whole, our government is there to protect all our people. We want to make it clear that we want to protect people who work and live on farms, whether they are farm workers, whether they are farmers, both black and white farmers. They should be protected and they should feel protected. They should have a sense and a feeling that this is their country, there's nowhere else to go, they live here, and where their protection is weak, we should find ways of strengthening their protection. Our protection services, as in police and other services, should always be there to protect the people who work on our farms. people who produce food, be they farm workers, be they farmers themselves. But that protection must be all round. It should be also protection for our women, our children. It should also be protection for our businesses. Some of our businesses have been subjected to continuous attack, to hijacking by those who want to extort money from the owners or the operators of our businesses. All that must come to a stop. We must be a country of law abiders. The rule of law must reign supreme in our country, and that is why I have to be firm on those who use loose language and talk of war and talk of conflict and talk of attacking one another. We must desist from seeking to attack one another whenever we have differences. We should rather talk to one another, not past one another, talk to one another and embrace one another and recognize that, yes, there are differences. Where some commit errors and express themselves in racist ways, their ways should be corrected. And we must use our agencies, our institutions, to correct those who err along the path of social cohesion and nation building. This is what we are as South Africans, and we must not ever deviate from this path. We've come from a very dangerous past, a very sad past, and I would say that those who seek to take us back to the very terrible past that we've had are not acting as South Africans. And I would even say those who seek to take us back, they are enemies of our people. Our people inherently want peace. They want to live in peace, and therefore we must forego any activity that is going to disturb the peace that our people want. Let's embrace one another as South Africans and move forward as one nation, united under one constitution, under one flag, under the rule of law, moving together in social cohesion as South Africans who are proud, yes, of our heritage, but even more proud of the future that lies ahead of us. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That concludes the questions to the President. And I have the honor to thank you today, Mr. President. Honorable members, this concludes the business of the day, and this House is adjourned. You can see it.
Thank you, Speaker.
Yes, Commissar.
Wow.
Well, there we have it. That was the President of the Republic, President Cyril Ramaphosa, answering oral questions in the National Assembly. Questions ranged from efforts to combat corruption in the economy. He was also answering questions related to fundraising, in the campaign for the presidency, that's CR17. And as you saw at the back of it there, he was speaking about racial tensions, in particular in South Africa, racial tensions, racism, and racial inequality, which led to the Senekal matter that, of course, was said to be a farm murder. Also, the happenings out in Brackenfell. We're going to try and dissect and go through all of that in the next hour of the show. For now, we take a quick break. When you come back in about a minute and a half or so, we'll try and delve into this and also just look into other stories that made headlines throughout the day. You're watching SA Today on SABC News. Please stay with us.
Our lives are different now, and saving money is more important than it ever was.
Saving money right now is crucial.
Saving is very important, and lockdown has showed us that.
Apart from everything, I just lost my job. We need to save in every way that we can.
But the quality of the services you pay for and who you trust with those services is also important. Outsurance has been a trusted insurer for over 22 years and provides a high-quality, trusted funeral plan at a low cost. Valid claims are paid out within 24 hours of claim approval. Let's meet some clients who save money by paying low monthly premiums for their funeral plan.
I found that no, with insurance, you'll never go wrong. The premiums are reasonable and affordable.
It's actually a bargain. Why would I go anywhere else? Meanwhile, our insurance is doing everything for me.
We're getting value for our money, and I can recommend it to anyone.
I am covered for 100,000. I also added my 2 lovely kids in it. That brings the total premium to 256 per month.
I'm currently paying 113 rand for a cover of 30,000 rand.
I'm paying 114 for a 30,000 rand cover.
I'm covered for 100,000 rand alone, and I've added my wife and my kids. My wife, she's covered for 100,000 rand, and my kids, each is covered for 50,000 rand. Overall premium is 423.
Paying a low cost for quality funeral cover and benefits means our clients are getting a good deal that's right for the times. You can control the cover amount you need from 30,000 rand to 100,000 rand, and you can change it at any time.
I am covered for 100,000 rand. I've included my son and my mother, and I pay a total of 397 rand. I'm actually getting more than what I've paid for.
As a main policy holder, I'm covered for 80,000, where I'm only paying 203 rand for myself. And when I added my mom, in total, I'm paying 428 rand per month, which is unbelievable.
Ingipha 75,000 if anything happen. I have my kids, abayi-2. Ngibhadala 243.
My premium with insurance, it covers me for 50,000 and my daughter for 10,000. And I pay 167 rand per month. I'm covered for 75,000 rand. My partner is also covered for 75,000 rand, and my kids as well. They're also covered under the same cover. And my monthly premium, it's only 283 rand. So it's really worth it.
Ask about the optional cash benefits for transport, catering, after tears,